and take you to mute. Anybody need to say one more thing before we go? Hopefully you'll get a newsletter out today, but just a reminder, if you're wanting to get into my office, not to my home or your home or to Resilience, a personal training studio, it has to be in the next 2 weeks. So if you want to take me up on that deal, many of you have, then make sure to get in touch with me to get that appointment on the books. Okay.
Best way to contact you?
Text or email, Kyra@painfreestudio.com. All right, I think we're good. So today I'm going to talk about a couple postural aspects where that can happen in the hips or the shoulders. So the hips and the shoulders have rotator cuffs. You have 4 muscles in your shoulder. That is the rotator of your arm bone. It rotates the humerus forward or backwards, and it's super important when you would go to throw something or reach for something. And those muscles only work really well when the shoulder blades are supported by the rhomboids. So the rhomboids, the muscles between the shoulder blade and the spine, stabilize so that the rotator cuff can work. So you can imagine then what happens if the rhomboids aren't working and you get into this kyphotic position, too much time at the computer, and the rhomboids aren't stabilizing the shoulder blades on your back, then the rotator cuff doesn't activate well. And then we can get all kinds of impingement or tears or the body trying to stabilize your joint. So there gets to be arthritis in the joint. All of those things can happen from that joint being out of position. And the same thing is true in your hips. So 4 muscles in your shoulders, 6 muscles in your pelvis that are the rotators of your leg bone. Now that rotation of the leg bone needs to happen, is necessary for walking, getting your leg behind you. And in the same way that the rhomboids support the shoulders, you have muscles like your primary hip flexor and your secondary hip flexors, quads, and this muscle called your TFL, we're going to go after that today a little bit, that can take over and pull you out of position. So usually that pull out of position is pelvis going forward, or if the TFL is really overactive, then sometimes, I'm going to take these off just so you can see my feet better, the knee might go in and the foot might go out. So if you have hip flexion with these and not your rotators and not your primary hip flexor, then maybe you have a posture that is knee going medial and foot going out. So I know a few of you can relate to that. So today we're going to go after the deep rotators of your shoulders and your hips by fixing your shoulder blades onto your back and putting your pelvis in a good position by laying on the floor mostly, so that the pelvis is fixed while we find those rotators. So go ahead and lie down on your back. We'll do it that way to start. Feet on the floor into hook lying, onto your back, knees bent. As you come into that position, make sure that your hip bones are level, your rib cage is level, your shoulders are open, and then go ahead and gently scoot the shoulder blades underneath your back so that you're helping your rhomboids, the muscle that stabilizes the shoulder, brings the shoulder in. The levator scapula and the trap also are part of that. But go ahead and do that, and then bring your arms out to the sides, straight out from your shoulders. And let's find those rhomboids. Squeeze your shoulders onto your back, pinching them toward your spine. Find the muscles between the shoulder blade and the spine, and then release. And just notice, do you have one that you can find more easily than the other? Release. Squeeze. Release. Now, if your upper back is overly rounded or kyphotic, this can be a difficult muscle to find, specifically on one side. And again, if you can't find it well, then it's very challenging for the arm bone to be in the correct place and to let those rotator cuff muscles work. Squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. As you squeeze, notice if they want to get hiked up by your ears and see if you can squeeze them more down and back into your middle back. About 5 more of those. Shoulder blades toward your spine and release. Shoulder blades toward your spine, release. I hope that everybody is finding those muscles now. So now that you have activation of those muscles, then let your arms just drop back like a goalpost. So we're beginning to use the rotator cuff muscles and then bring them back up. Let them drop back and come up. So shoulder blades mostly fixed on your back, rotator cuff getting to do a little bit of work. Over and back. Separate the arm bone from the shoulder blade. Relax your belly. Take some deep breaths. If your shoulders relax more or your upper back relaxes more and you can move your shoulder blades a little more down your back, that would be great. And let's do 10 more goalposts. Back and up. Elbows straight out from your shoulders. And just notice as you rotate one direction or the other, does the shoulder still want to lift off the floor? That's a good indication you're not quite getting that bone to work independently. Good. Now hug your elbows into your sides. We'll just change the angle. Shoulder blades hugging underneath your back in toward your spine, and then drop them wide this way and bring them back up. Out and in. And then bring your arms straight up to the sky. Let your shoulders relax down to the floor and rotate your whole arm bone. So elbows strong, in and out. Shoulder blade fixed, so don't let the shoulder blade go anywhere. We're doing this with an open kinetic chain right now. We will do this later with a closed kinetic chain, but rotate the entire arm bone. Don't let the shoulder blade go anywhere. Keep sinking the shoulders down your back. Rotate in that arm bone. And notice you have one that wants to take the shoulder blade with it. It wants to hike up by your ears as you rotate that arm bone in. Can you get that to move independently? Maybe that goes all the way up into your neck. Excellent. And then just bring your elbows down, do some circles with your wrists. You can kind of hold the arms in the golfer's grip. Taking that into the forearm muscles a little bit by, like, imagine you're holding onto a can and you just dump it out and then fill it back up again, dump it out, so that the wrist and into the elbow gets to do some rotations now that your shoulder blades are held more stable. Good. And back to just some wrist circles, forward and back. And then interlace your fingers, shoulders down toward the floor, and pull your arms over your head, touch the floor, and back up. Elbows stay super straight, letting that move into your upper back, into your shoulders, and up. So you might have a true shoulder dysfunction, and that may be the only major thing that is happening in your body. But given that your shoulders ride on top of your pelvis, we most often see shoulder dysfunction as a compensation for a dysfunction lower in the body. Pelvis, knee, ankle, something else. So sometimes as we undo whatever's going on in the shoulder, then we start to see what else is going on. An offset happen in the torso, rotation that happens in your pelvis, something lower down. And sometimes undoing the shoulder dysfunction starts to let that other thing come out as well, especially in this position. So maybe you're here, you're relaxing your belly, and as your upper back changes position, that also lets your lower body begin to change position as well. So let's start to move into those hips. So I'm going to have you come onto your hands and knees and start with cats and dogs. We'll tie the hips and shoulders together a little bit. As you come into the dog position of this, let your shoulder blades move down your back away from your ears. So think collarbones wide, shoulders sinking, and then come up. Okay, now we're going to go after that TFL, this muscle on the side that is an assistant hip flexor that can sometimes take over hip flexion and do that thing where your knee goes in and your foot goes out. So I want you to come into a kneeling groin stretch, except that I want you to pretend you're doing it on a balance beam instead of hips wide, so that this knee actually goes slightly medial, because the TFL is an abductor of the hip. So by putting it in closer to the midline of your body, you're going to put a little bigger stretch on that specific muscle. So go ahead and come forward into your kneeling groin. I know that's more challenging to balance, but see if you can get a stretch to come into this side, not just the primary hip flexor, but a little bit to the outside. Go ahead and go forward, shoulder blades relaxing away from down your back, and relax your belly. And just go into that and hold. You could even gently squeeze your shoulder blades on your back so that those rhomboid muscles are activated a little bit and the arm bone is hugged up into the shoulder a little bit more. Maybe that will let your hips go, because it gives your central nervous system some stability at the top so that you can release at the base. And release out of that. Second side. So taking that foot forward, imagine you're on a balance beam. So crossing that midline or into the midline a little bit, and then go ahead and take it forward. Open that space. How about, is one side different than the other? And do you know if that's the same foot that goes out? If you have a foot that tends to go out more often. Shoulder blades down your back, relaxing your belly. Breathe. And then release out of that. Come back down onto your back and extend one leg out straight on the floor, arms out to the side, shoulder blades underneath you, tighten your thigh, and then rotate the whole leg out and in. So go into the rotators, deep rotators of your hip, out and in. So if you know that you have a hard time finding your butt muscles on one side, it could be that that TFL is the culprit. Go ahead and switch. And that stretch that we just did then can help open that up, and we can find the rotators, and then we can find your glutes. Out and in. Again, second or first side, second time, 10 more. Rotate that whole leg out and in. Switch. Double check your alignment, that your rib cage and pelvis is even and you're not offset on the floor as your shoulders have started to relax and open up. Take both legs out, separate your legs so that they're wider than your hips, and then go back to that rotation again. Out and in. Finding those rotators of your hips. Good. We're going to find it a different way now. Shoulder blades down your back. Find those rhomboids a little bit here and then completely relax. And then bend your right knee up towards you. And then imagine that the knee is fixed with a bolt from the knee to the hip, and then rotate so that the knee is turning out and the ankle is coming medial. And see if you can get as much internal or external rotation as possible, and then take that to neutral and go the other way, fixing the knee, rotating that ankle wide. That's internal rotation in hip flexion. So some of these muscles work better when the knee is out, and they're weaker in this position. But we're going to work them both ways. Out and neutral. I'm going to just turn so you can see the different angle. So knee is fixed, don't let it move. Taking it all the way into that rotation, and then here, and then all the way wide, knee staying stable as much as you can, back to neutral. Let's do that one more time. Finding those rotators in hip flexion, knee flexion, rotate, neutral, out, neutral, switch. 3 times on the other side. Fix the knee, rotate that ankle in, neutral, out, internal rotation. Notice how that is for you. And then both legs up, knees together, feet out, feet together, knees out, knees together, feet out, feet together, knees out, knees together, feet out, feet together, knees out, knees together, feet out. Relax your shoulders, relax your belly, and release. Roll over onto your belly. So now we change the position of the spine. Fold your hands under your forehead, bend your knees. So now we're in hip extension, knee flexion, and that's going to put more arch into your low back. We're going to do wishbones here. So go ahead and relax your head down. Take your feet out and in, out and in. So knees together, dropping those legs into that internal rotation and together. Glute medius, glute minimus. Adductors having to stabilize here. Shoulders completely relaxed. And then take your knees wide. Now you can stay just prone, forehead resting on your hands, or you could bring your elbows up onto the floor, slightly wider than your shoulders or just below your shoulders, and then hands into fists or golfer's grip, thumbs pointed up to the ceiling, and then pull your forearms apart, find your rhomboids again, those muscles between your shoulder blades, and also depress the shoulder blades. So pull your shoulder blades down your back. We're finding all of the extensor muscles on the back side of your body. So through your back, and then placing the bottom of your feet together, press the bottom of your feet together to get that external rotation to happen at the hip. Press, release. You might feel this in your hamstring. Hopefully you can feel it all the way into your butt. Press, release. Press, release. Is it even into your glutes? What's happening? If you notice that sometimes this isn't even, is it better now after we opened up that TFL? Is that allowing for better rotation in the hip? Awesome. Release out of that and then roll onto your back. Now let's go after the correct hip flexion. So arms out, legs out, go into cross crawling. Now you have 2 choices with this one. You can take the opposite arm and opposite leg up and go slowly up and down as if you're have a string connected from your hand to your knee, and as you pull it up, the opposite arm and opposite leg comes up with you, coming up and down. Or if you want a little more abdominal work, then you could switch at the top. switch. Let's do 20 of these. So pelvis and shoulders fixed on the floor. Going into hip flexion. And hopefully now we're not just going to use the TFL, but we actually get primary hip flexor, at least at the from the floor up a little bit. And as you go over, let your thumb and your pinky finger touch on the floor so that that palm is really back and flat. And hopefully the rhomboid, letting the shoulder blade be somewhat stable and also be able to rotate. So this upward rotation of the shoulder blade as we go up, and then downward rotation of the shoulder blade as you come down. $18, $19, $20. Both feet on the floor, go ahead and rock back and forth, pelvic tilts. And then arms out to the side, tuck your shoulders underneath you once more. This time cross the left ankle over the right knee. Bring it all the way down to the right side, hip crossover stretch. Palms down, look all the way to the left and press that knee away from you. Hold and breathe. And each minute hold that we have can be an opportunity for you to tune to your breathing, feel the sensations in your body, be in the present moment. Allow the rotation of this leg bone in the socket to work. Have your pelvis stabilize in ways that it needs to. Have the connection all the way from the foot to the shoulder, even into your neck. Come on up. Switch. Right ankle over left, all the way down to the floor. Press that knee away from you, opening up the hip. Feel your breath in and out of your body. You can fully go in, fully exhale, in through your nose, and out. Come on up. Then switch legs again. This time go into hip lift. Foot, knee, and ankle in right, all straight in right angles. And then arms out to the sides, shoulders relaxing. Push with your left knee, pull with your right knee, hold and breathe. Again, feeling the breath move in and out of your body, seeing if you can keep your neck and shoulders totally relaxed. Let this be hip work. Getting that primary hip flexor to activate So as right up in that hip, from your inside of the hip all the way to your spine. And release. Switch sides. Crossing the right over left, and then pull it up. Move that knee away from you, pull it in, hold and breathe. Feel your breath, feel your body. And gently release. Both feet on the floor. Pelvic tilts again, rocking backward and forward. Now that the rotators are hopefully doing their job, the pelvis can move when the legs are fixed, and hopefully that moves evenly. You have that feeling like your pelvis is on a train track, and it can just go forward and back, and it's moving evenly on both sides of your spine. Excellent. Come onto your hands and knees. Grab your block and your strap. So now we're going to put the shoulders and the pelvis kind of back together. So go ahead and put the block between your ankles and then come into that static extension position. So for most people, that's going to be hips forward of your knees, hands right under your shoulders, and then go ahead and let your shoulder blades squeeze onto your back. Let your head drop. For some people, letting your pelvis fall forward over your leg bones like that will be too much. So if that's true, just come back a little bit. But if you're okay with letting it be out there, take it out there, and then squeeze and release the block at your ankles. 20 squeezes. Press. Feel the muscles deep in your hips. Release. You may even feel a shoulder muscle change as your hip muscles get to do their job. You have muscles, the same rotator cuff muscles that I talked about are part of fixing the shoulder into it's called the glenoid fascia or the glenohumeral joint. So in this position, it's just holding the arm bone in the right place. But maybe some of those muscles are tight or short, and that shoulder blade doesn't want to quite drop down into that. Maybe it's tight in the front. Your pec minor could be part of that. That muscle is up here, and it pulls that shoulder forward and kind of out. So as that can open up, stretch in the pec, then the shoulder blade can move, and the head of the arm bone can be held better in the right place. Okay, when you've done 20, go ahead and take your block away and put your strap around your ankles. Go into that static extension position again. And then pull out with your ankles, letting your belly hang. Pelvis gets to rotate over your leg bones, shoulder blades on your back, head of the arm bone into the shoulder socket. And then those muscles get to hold it there. while your pelvis gets to adjust. Pressing out against that strap. That would trigger your internal rotators, glute medius, glute minimus, adductors. I believe your glomerulis is part of that too, but I'd have to look. But if you feel it in your butt, on the outside of your butt, that would be a good place to feel this right now. And release. Go ahead and put your feet and knees together and then go back into a child's pose. Let your arms just relax, shoulder blades off your back, deep breaths, filling the space in your back. Breathe. Now we're triggering all of your flexor muscles, all of the muscles in the front that flex your body, letting your shoulder blades just really relax off your back. Full retraction of the shoulder blade. 2 more full breaths here. Excellent. And then come all the way to standing. And just check. How is that in your body? Where's your balance on your feet? How does it feel as your body starts to stack up? Can you stand there and take a full deep breath in your belly and let your belly relax? Okay, now let's do a little bit of standing work so that all of this stays there and is good and stable. So let's go into some first arm circles. So same muscles in the shoulder. As you squeeze the shoulder blade, fix the rhomboids onto your back. Arms get to come up, elbows super strong and straight. Fold your fingers into your palms. Squeeze the shoulder blades on your back and relax your belly once again. Double check that your feet are straight ahead and circle forward 40 circles. So all of those rotator cuff muscles get to fix the arm bone into the glenoid fascia, and then the fixed shoulder blades on your back get to trigger your hip flexors and your stabilizers to do their job all the way down the chain. And 40, palms up. So rotate the shoulder blades. Those external rotators get to work. Squeeze the shoulder blades onto your back. Same thing, relax your belly. Full breath. Elbows super strong and straight. Hands in the golfer's grip, parallel to the floor, circling backwards. And 40. Excellent. Now, finding your balance on one foot, take your knee up, then take the leg out, bring the rotation into that leg, and then back. And then back through and up again. Hip flexion, take it wide, rotate the leg, bring it around. All those balancing muscles having to work, up, out, rotate, around. One more. Dog pees on a fire hydrant, up and over the hurdle and around, down. Dog pees on a fire hydrant, out, bring it over a hurdle and around. And switching legs. That should be a lot of work. Second side, flex the hip as far as you can go. Take it wide, get that ankle up over that hurdle, take it back behind you. Up, out, rotate, around. One more, up, out, rotate, around. Now, dog pees on a fire hydrant, rotate up and around. Excellent. Both feet on the floor, up onto your toes, 10 times. Take your feet wide, same thing. Toes in. Straight. Let me just check where we're at. Okay, let's go into a lunge. And let's go into that TFL a little bit more. So go more balance beam position. Bending into your front knee, that's going to be balance challenge just to be there. And then just reach your arms to the sky. So knowing that we have all this connection between the opposite side and the opposite shoulder and across our backs, take it up, bend into that front knee a lot, work that back heel down toward the floor, and let this whole hip open again. And step forward, second side, back into a lunge, then a little bit more like you're on a balance beam. Bending deeply into that front leg, reach your arms to the sky, open that space. Work that back heel down toward the floor, opening that. Relax your belly. Find those extensors in your spine. Excellent. Both feet up. Now bend over into a forward fold. Feet pointed straight ahead. Tighten up the muscles around your knee. Keep your legs super straight for this one, and go ahead and bend over. Let your head drop. Find your primary hip flexor. Hamstrings have to lengthen. Belly has to work. Thighs stay tight. Taking it all the way over and breathe. Let's do 5 more breaths here. Fully in, fully out. And come on up. Downward facing dog pose. Tie your shoulders into your hips. Hands on the floor, stepping back. Legs straight if you can, otherwise knees bent to prioritize your spine. If your legs are straight and your spine is rounded like this, then go ahead and take a knee bend and prioritize the spinal position into more straight. If your spine is pretty straight and you can work on that arch in your low back, then keep working your legs straight, heels to the floor. Feel your breath. Feel the strength in your arms and the grounding aspect of this pose today. Come on out of it. And then go into a runner stretch. You can use your block or hands on the floor, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, like you're on that balance beam again. And then go ahead and go forward. Bringing the weight to the insides of your feet. 2 more breaths. Switch. And then come down onto your back for foot circles, point flexes. Last one to tie the hips and shoulders all the way together. Bend your knee, hold underneath your knee, pull your shoulders down and back. Then bring that leg up as high as it'll go. Circle your foot 20 circles all the way around. Reverse. point and flex. Switch sides. And point and flex. And then go ahead and find your position. Legs up in static back, or legs out on the floor. So I was listening to a book that Pema Chodron wrote, and she is trained in the Tibetan tradition as a monk, and she introduced the concept of Shempa. And Shempa is the underlying piece of our triggers, all of our triggers. So that could be addiction, that could be moving away, any way that we want to move away from pain. It can be triggers that your family has. She said going to a family reunion can often be a Shempa party. So just finding all the triggers, and the triggers that bring up emotion and then breed thoughts. So we've been working in this class on recognizing the thoughts, moving into being able to take a witness perspective to those thoughts, notice where they're coming from and how they're arising in consciousness. And those triggers, Shimpa, can be patterns that we all have, and who knows where those have come from. But today feels like a day that could be full of those triggers. So it's a great opportunity for us to practice and to notice and be a witness to when we find those triggers in ourselves. And one, have compassion for those triggers that show up in ourselves, and also know that all of the people that we're around are also having those triggers, and not all of those people have done the practices that we have to be able to step outside of those triggers and be able to witness them and then come back to the present moment. So how quickly can you do that today will be an interesting question. Can you notice the trigger and show up to your breath and show up as a witness and choose to let that be a breeder of thoughts that can take you down a rabbit hole, or an opportunity to come back to the present moment? So I want you to notice that right here as you come to your breath. And when you notice that your triggers, Shempa thoughts are taking you somewhere else, I would love for you to first just be compassionate with yourself And then come back to the present moment. That compassion for ourselves allows the compassion to show up for other people wherever they are. So feel your body as sensation, as energy. Notice your breath, the sounds, the sensations that hold you to the present moment. And the moment you notice that you're lost in thought, or that something has a hook for you, a hook that can turn into reading thoughts that take you out of the present moment, practice coming back. Practice surrounding yourself with unconditional love. Surrounding others with unconditional love. And coming back to right now. Back to your breath. Back to the sensations of your body, the sounds that are happening right now. And again, if you've noticed that you are thinking, you can simply say thinking and come back to right now. If you'd like to stay in this practice, please turn off your computer. If you'd like to check in, we have a couple minutes to do that before we say goodbye.